And with me now is the Labour Party's candidate for Warminster, Copheap and Wylye, Nicola Grove. Thank you for coming in.
That's a great pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Why should the residents in Warminster, Copheap and Wylye choose your name for their cross in the box on Thursday?
Well, I think there are two reasons actually, and one is to do with local democracy, and I think local democracy thrives when you've got a range of views and a diversity of arguments, and when you've got people who are prepared to stand up and challenge the status quo. And I think it must be said that Wiltshire Council has kind of lacked that kind of diversity of opinion. When I was leafleting in Warminster Copheap recently, there was one young woman who was there at the door as I was there, and she took the leaflet and said, "I'm voting Labour this time." If you want a reason, that's why. Because there are people who have different views. There are people who espouse socialist policies or policies that are really fair, and who need somebody to vote for. And up until now, they haven't really had anybody. So that's one reason. The second reason, I think, is that I'm a very fresh face into this. And I come with quite a track record of things that I think would be valuable as a councillor. So I'm very good at innovative problem solving. I've worked all my life in the NHS and in special education, so I really know what things are like at the coalface. And I spent the last 15 years setting up and running a small charity based locally, and so I've got really a lot of experience from a lot of different perspectives that I can offer.
And you mentioned the local democracy aspect of it. And in sort of 4 years ago, certainly in the Warminster area, the 5 seats, there weren't any Labour candidates. Right. In fact, there weren't any Liberal Democrat candidates either. So what do you think's changed in that 4 years? Why are you all standing this time?
Well, I can say that what I found in South Wiltshire Labour Party is a group of people who are absolutely passionately committed to making this society better. And I think I'm nearly 70, and one of the things that I find, the reason that I'm back into local politics and looking to build a different way of operating right from the ground, grassroots, is because I feel so upset about what has happened to our country in the last 4 years. It feels as though all of the achievements that I felt most proud of as somebody going through university with grants, the benefit of a good education, then working in the NHS, it feels as though public service has become a dirty word, that really the answer to everything is private outsourcing. Now, whenever you outsource to businesses, they're about profits for shareholders. And it distresses me so much, and I think that, the other people who campaign with me, to see nurses and doctors and teachers being kind of demonised by this government. And I'm so shocked and appalled by this that I felt that I had to put some effort into actually changing it. And the only way of doing that, I think, is to stand up and be counted. And that's what I found in all of the people that I'm working with locally. And I think there's a feeling generally about all the numbers of people who joined the Labour Party, which is now huge, is because people feel that there must be a change, and we have to go back to the kinds of policies that emphasise community and caring and the things that are valuable in this country.
So what do you feel are the biggest issues for the residents in Warminster, Copheap and Wylye at the moment?
Well, I think they're the issues that are facing Warminster generally, actually. I mean, I think the Army does a really good job at looking after people, but we're a low-wage economy. Wiltshire Council has cut its police force, it's cut the budget on roads, it's cut the youth service, which is absolutely shocking. I mean, when I was leafleting, I met these 2 lovely kids who said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm leafleting for the council. Do you know what a councillor is?" And they knew what a councillor was, and they explained to me what a councillor was and what a councillor did. We need to use the enthusiasm and the energy of those young people. There are now only 7 youth facilitators, cut from a staff of 144 in 2014. So I think, you know, Warminster is suffering from the same problems that affect a lot of places that have had low investment for a really long period of time. And one of the big issues being housing, which again is not so much the issue for the Army at the moment, although I gather there are plans to actually sell that housing off and privatise Army housing. I mean, that was something nationally that came up recently.
With regards to the youth services that you
Yeah.
mentioned, if your plan is to increase the number of youth workers, how are you going to fund that? What are you going to cut instead?
Well, I think, you know, that's difficult to say at this point when we haven't actually had a really good look at the budgets, but what I would say is that I think we need to take a very, very hard look at private outsourcing and you know, what that's done and whether that is actually value for money. And I think by bringing back a lot of services in-house, you would actually save money. There is a kind of big lie that you know, you save money by outsourcing. And sometimes you do at the expense of decent salaries for people who then go on to zero-hour contracts, which means that they have less money to spend in the local economy, and it becomes a vicious and self-perpetuating cycle. So I think we'd look very, very, I know that what we would be doing is looking very, very carefully at all of the privatised outsourcing to see whether it actually represented value for money or simply was just a way of shuffling off responsibilities.
You mentioned healthcare. We obviously have an issue in Warminster at the moment with regards to the doctor's surgery.
Absolutely.
What do you feel is the solution to the problem that we've got?
Well, as I think one of your other interviewees said, I mean, it's very, you know, it is really difficult when what you've got is a situation that's largely been caused by national policies and national kind of rhetoric about austerity and cuts, effectively cuts to the National Health Service. And so I think they have to be resisted at all costs. And it's a matter of looking and seeing what Smallbrook themselves are offering, suggesting. I understand that some of the problems may be temporary ones because of lack of staff due to things like maternity cover and so on, but there's no doubt there's a national shortage of doctors, which is only going to be made worse by the anti-immigration policies that are being put forward.
And you also earlier on, I think, mentioned roads, which often comes up as a concern of residents. We had part of Boreham Road recently resurfaced. So would you agree that Wiltshire Council appears to be getting on with it?
As I understand it, they are now starting to actually look at it and recognise that actually just leaving roads to fall into utter disrepair in the long term is really not good for the local economy or for local people or for anyone. And they've paid phenomenal amounts of compensation to bus drivers, for example, I understand, because of the potholes. So I'm very glad to see that they are finally taking notice of what local people are saying, and I think that that's one of the jobs of the councillor, is to actually listen and represent and ask those hard questions and make sure that they do nail councillors to the wall in saying they must actually get on and provide the services for which they are elected and to which they're accountable.
Your colleagues standing in the three other Warminster town wards are standing for the unitary and for the town council. You're standing just for the unitary council. So does that mean that you think Stephen Jeffries, the Conservative on the town council in Copheap, is doing a very good job?
You've kind of asked me two questions there in one, which I'll answer. Right, the reason that I'm not standing as a town councillor is that unfortunately I live too far outside to be able to do that. If I lived within the margin, I undoubtedly would be standing for the town council. From what I can tell, I think he has been doing a reasonable job at representing the views of people from Copheap on the town council. But I think, as I say, that there's, what you want is a diversity of opinion and a diversity of arguments. And so I think it would actually be a jolly good thing if what you had was a Conservative on the town council and a Labour councillor on the unitary ward, because that way you would actually get real energetic debate going and a kind of a real sort of push to listen to the needs of Copheap residents and to approach that together.
Okay, we're running out of time, but I'll just finish off with the question that I've asked everybody, which is if you're elected next Thursday, with the vote on Friday, I understand, the count on Friday, what would be the one thing you would hope to achieve if you could pick one thing in your 4-year term?
Yeah, no, I've thought a lot about this, and I think, again, it has to be something that I could actually achieve and is something that I could really offer. One of the things that I'm really passionate about is involving people with learning disabilities as local citizens. And I think Wiltshire actually has quite a pretty good track record in terms of people with mild and moderate learning difficulties. But what I'm very passionate about is people who have much more severe and profound disabilities, and how they can be not just recipients, passive recipients of care, but can be thought of as individuals who have resources that they can offer. And I'll tell you one way in which that can help. One of the skills that is most critical for our economy is good communication. And I know that being Warminster Community Radio, you'd agree with that. Well, one of the best ways, and I can tell you this as an ex-speech therapist, one of the best ways that I have found of learning how to communicate well across the board is by learning how to interact effectively with people who have profound intellectual disabilities, who communicate non-verbally, pre-verbally. And if you can learn how to communicate effectively with those people and to listen to them, you have become a really good communicator with skills that you can apply in your work and in all areas of your life. Now, those people were my teachers, and I think that they have a role to play as teachers of us, and I don't see why they shouldn't actually be remunerated for doing that. And that's something that I'm going to be doing in Frome, where the charity is based. We're going to be working on a plan to have that experts by experience, and I think everybody could learn from these citizens.
Okay, thank you very much for coming in, and good luck on polling day.
Thank you so much, and thank you for asking me.